All right, strap in, everyone. Today we are diving deep into the world of government contracts.
Yeah, we're talking about that shift back to fixed price contracts. It has a lot of people, especially in the industry, kind of confused. So if you're working with the government, this is something you really need to pay attention to.
Definitely.
We're going to be looking at an article from the National Law Review, came out very recently, February 10th, 2025.
Oh, wow, just last week.
Very recent, called Government's Shift to Fixed Price Contracts, What It Means.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, this isn't just lawyers talking. This is about risk, strategy, all the things that matter, especially for smaller businesses. The thing that's really got me scratching my head is that the government's kind of going back to fixed price after they moved away from it a few years back.
Hmm.
So why the change of heart? What's going on?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It could be a couple of things, I think. Maybe there's some political pressure to look good with the budget.
Huh.
That whole fiscal responsibility thing.
Right, optics. Yeah, and fixed price contracts, at least on paper, they give you that certainty.
Right.
That makes those budget folks happy.
Right. Okay, so before we get into the why, I think we need to define what exactly we're talking about when we say fixed price contracts. I mean, yeah, it sounds simple enough,
Sure.
but I'm sure there are nuances we need to unpack.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's more to it than meets the eye, for sure. Basically, a fixed price contract, the price is set. It doesn't matter what unexpected costs might pop up during the project.
Huh.
So let's say a contractor agrees to build, I don't know, a new software system for $5 million.
Yeah.
They got to deliver for that price, even if suddenly some key component becomes like 3 times more expensive
Oh, wow.
because it's scarce.
So the contractor is left holding the bag
Yeah.
while the government is sitting pretty.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can see the appeal for them,
Sure.
but man, that just sounds like a ton of risk for the contractor,
Oh, absolutely.
especially if things go really wrong.
Yeah, and that's why this article is kind of waving a red flag, especially for the smaller businesses.
Yeah.
They just don't have that big safety net that a bigger company might have to absorb those hits.
I could already see some headaches coming for contractors with this. Wouldn't this also, I'm just thinking, discourage companies from taking risks, being innovative,
Yeah.
if they're stuck with a fixed price? I mean, wouldn't it make sense to just go with the safest, most predictable option,
Yeah.
even if you sacrifice some potential breakthroughs?
You're right, and the article brings that up. There's a real chance this whole shift could turn into a race to the bottom,
Oh, wow.
where companies just care about keeping costs as low as possible
Right, yeah.
to avoid any losses, and maybe they sacrifice quality or, coming up with truly game-changing
So
solutions.
it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Government gets that budget predictability, but they might end up with lower quality,
Mhm.
less innovation. The article actually uses an example
Okay.
that really illustrates this. There's this major government contractor, big player in space and defense, and apparently they're facing big losses on some of their projects.
Wow.
And part of it is because of this move to fixed price contracts.
Yeah.
If a company that big is feeling the pinch, I can't imagine what it's like for smaller businesses.
It's a scary thought,
Hmm.
especially because, smaller businesses, they're often the ones driving innovation, being nimble and flexible.
So fixed price contracts, they're back. They brought some baggage with them. So the question is it a take it or leave it situation for contractors? Or is there a way to kind of navigate this minefield without putting your whole business at risk?
Well, the article does offer a few strategies, ways to minimize the risks,
Okay.
but they're not without their own complications.
Okay, well, let's hear them. What are we talking about?
Sure.
The article mentions three things: equitable price adjustment clauses,
Yep.
realistic performance goals,
Uh-huh.
and dollar caps.
Yeah.
Let's start with those equitable price adjustment clauses. Uh, EPAs for short, right?
That's right.
What are those, and how do they even work in a fixed price contract? It seems kind of contradictory.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a workaround. Basically, an EPA allows for some price adjustment, but only under very specific circumstances.
Okay.
It's not just a free pass for any cost overrun.
Right.
It usually has a pretty high bar to clear. Like something major has to happen, with material costs or something that no one could have seen coming.
So it's not just like, oh, steel got more expensive, we need more money. It's got to be something truly unforeseen
Yeah.
and out of the contractor's control.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, trying to get an EPA clause into a fixed price contract, that's a battle in itself. The government, they might be hesitant because it kind of defeats the whole point of a fixed budget.
So it's a high-stakes negotiation. Contractors want some protection.
Yeah.
The government wants to hold that line on the fixed price. What about the second strategy,
Right.
setting realistic performance goals? How does that work, especially for like research and development contracts?
Right.
I mean, by definition, those are unpredictable.
Yeah, that's where clear communication and really understanding the scope of the project come in.
Okay,
Contractors need to be realistic about what they can actually accomplish
right,
within the time and the budget. Don't overpromise. It's much better to underpromise and exceed expectations than the other way around.
right. Underpromise, overdeliver. Like you don't want to guarantee a moonshot
Right.
if you don't even know if the rocket's going to launch.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to the third strategy, the dollar caps. This is where things get a little more flexible.
Okay.
It involves setting a maximum amount, a ceiling, even if unexpected costs pop up.
Okay, so it's like a fixed price with a little bit of wiggle room. The government knows the most they're going to pay,
Right.
but the contractor has a bit of protection against like a total financial meltdown.
It's a way to balance things out.
Right.
Acknowledge that you can't predict everything.
So I've got EPAs, realistic goals, dollar caps,
Yeah.
each with their own pluses and minuses. Probably best suited for different situations.
Right.
But let's zoom out a bit.
Sure.
Look at the big picture. This shift toward fixed price contracts. Is it good or bad for government contracting as a whole?
Oh, that's a tough one. The answer probably depends on who you ask. There are definitely good things and bad things to think about.
The article kind of hints at both sides.
Right.
On one hand, fixed price contracts could lead to more competition,
Yeah.
which is usually a good thing, right?
Generally,
More companies competing could mean lower prices,
yeah,
better value for the government.
that's the optimistic view. But then you got to look at the other side. Increased competition could also mean companies bidding super low just to get the work.
Right.
Maybe cutting corners, sacrificing quality just to make up for that low price.
So it's a trade-off. Lower prices up front might mean you get lower quality, things aren't sustainable. Even, ethical concerns might come into play. It's a lot to think about. I'm also curious about the long-term effects of this. Could this lead to less innovation in government projects? Or will companies adapt, find ways to thrive in this new environment?
That's a really important question and something we can definitely explore further in our next conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Sounds good.
But definitely stay tuned, because we're going to dive deeper into these long-term consequences and what they might mean for the future of government contracting.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? Like, where is this all headed, this shift to fixed price? It could really be a turning point for innovation in government. Will it kill creativity or force contractors to get even more, resourceful? Guess we'll have to see.
Let's just say for a minute that this trend is here to stay.
Okay.
What can contractors do to not just survive, but really do well in this new world? Is it all doom and gloom, or is there some, light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I wouldn't say it's all bad. There are definitely ways for contractors to adapt,
Okay.
even thrive. But they got to change how they think about things. Bidding and managing projects, they need a new strategy.
Okay, so less winging it, more thinking ahead.
Right.
Where do contractors even start? What are the most important things they need to do to, navigate this new reality?
I think the foundation is really a thorough risk assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Before they even think about submitting a bid, contractors need to break down the project, every little piece of it.
Okay.
Identify anything that could drive up costs or where things could go sideways.
So not just the best case scenario.
Right.
You got to play devil's advocate, think about all the what ifs.
Exactly. And that's where experience and knowing your industry really matters.
Yeah.
You got to understand how costs have behaved in the past for materials, labor,
Right.
anticipate problems in the supply chain,
Oh, yeah.
even factor in things like weather or changes in regulations.
It sounds like a lot to juggle.
It is.
But isn't that what the government is trying to avoid by putting the risk on the contractor?
I mean, yeah and no. The government wants that fixed price, sure.
Right.
But they also want the project done right.
Right, of course.
So contractors need to show they've really thought about these risks,
Okay.
factored them into their bids. It's managing risk, not pretending it doesn't exist.
So instead of saying, hey, we can build this bridge for $10 million no matter what happens,
Right.
it's more like, we can build this bridge for $10 million, but if there's a huge earthquake, it's going to cost an extra $2 million to make sure it doesn't fall down.
Exactly. Transparency is key here.
Yeah.
Contractors gotta be upfront about what they're assuming and what those potential extra costs could be.
And that's where those strategies we talked about earlier come in, right? The
Yep.
EPAs, realistic goals, dollar caps, those are all tools to help manage that risk and make things a bit fairer.
Absolutely. And contractors should get creative. Maybe they propose doing the project in phases where hitting certain milestones allows for some price adjustments. Okay. Or they offer different options with varying levels of risk and cost.
Yeah.
Let the government choose what suits them best.
So it's about having a conversation,
Right.
finding solutions that work for both sides.
Right.
Government gets their fixed budget, but the contractor isn't left out in the cold if something crazy happens.
Exactly. And that leads to another really important thing for success here: communication.
Okay.
Contractors got to keep those lines of communication open with the government throughout the entire project.
So no more disappearing for months and then showing up with a finished product hoping for the best.
Oh, that's just asking for trouble in a fixed price world.
Right.
Regular updates, transparent cost tracking, and being proactive about solving problems, those are essential.
Got it.
If there's a problem, don't ignore it.
Right.
Tell the government right away and work together to find a solution.
Makes sense. If you're upfront about the challenges, you're more likely to find a solution that works rather than letting things get out of control.
Exactly.
And being proactive like that, it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with ethics.
Right.
If you're always trying to hide problems or cut corners just to stay under budget, that's a dangerous path.
It is. It can lead to bad decisions.
So open communication, it's not just good business. It's also a way to avoid making choices you'll regret later.
Absolutely. Speaking of safeguards, we got to talk about documentation. Keeping good records is super important with fixed price contracts.
So we're talking more than just scribbling notes on a napkin, right?
Right.
Like, what does that look like?
Contractors need a serious system.
Yeah.
Track costs, document changes, manage all communication with the government, all of it.
Yeah.
This stuff can be your lifeline if things go south and you end up in a dispute.
Like building a solid case file, just in case you end up in contract court.
Exactly.
Better to be over-prepared than scrambling to put things together at the last minute.
Exactly. And these records, they're not just for legal protection. They can help you learn and improve.
Yeah.
By tracking costs and analyzing how things went, you can figure out what to do better next time.
Right, refine your bidding strategy.
Right.
So it's not just about covering your you-know-what. It's about constantly learning and getting better.
Right. Each contract is a learning experience.
Yeah, a data point. Okay. Let's shift gears a bit. Talk about something people often forget about in government contracting. Talent management.
Oh, yeah, the people. Can't forget about them.
Right, the brains behind these complex projects.
Fixed price contracts, they really need a skilled and flexible workforce. People who can think critically, solve problems creatively, and handle pressure.
So it's not just about having the technical know-how.
Right.
It's about having the right mindset.
Yeah.
You need people who can adjust and find solutions on the fly because things are going to go wrong.
And that means contractors need to change how they find and develop talent.
Yeah.
Invest in training, create a culture of continuous learning, empower their teams to make decisions.
It's about making people feel valued, supported, and like they can take charge. You can't expect people to deliver amazing results under a fixed price model if they're constantly being micromanaged or afraid to speak up.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, let's talk tech.
Oh, yeah.
I knew we couldn't get through this without talking about the role of technology in all of this.
Absolutely. These days, contractors got to use technology to streamline, be more efficient, and get ahead of the competition.
So more than just spreadsheets and email, right? What kind of tech are we talking about?
Oh, there's tons of stuff out there. Project management platforms, cost tracking software, advanced analytics, even artificial intelligence.
AI in government contracting. That sounds like something out of a movie.
It's more common than you might think.
Really?
These tools can help contractors do things like estimate costs accurately, spot potential risks, track progress in real time, manage communication and documentation seamlessly, and even analyze data to figure out where to improve.
So it's like having a digital assistant guiding you through all the complexities.
That's a good way to put it. Technology can free up your team so they can focus on what they do best, solving problems and delivering results.
Okay, we've covered a lot here. Risk assessment, communication, documentation, talent, technology. But let's bring it back to our listener who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by this whole shift to fixed price contracts. What's the one key takeaway you'd leave them with?
You know, if I had to boil it down to one thing, it would be this. Embrace the challenge. Don't look at fixed price contracts as a bad thing. See them as a chance to get better at what you do, learn new skills, and become more competitive.
Turn that obstacle into a springboard.
Exactly.
Instead of being afraid, use it as motivation to innovate and excel.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to figure it all out on your own. There are people and resources out there to help.
Right?
Talk to experts, network with other contractors, stay updated on best practices.
It's about building a network, sharing what you know, learning from each other.
Absolutely.
All right, before we wrap up this part, there's one more thing we need to talk about.
Yeah.
The potential long-term consequences of this shift.
Right. The big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about how this could affect individual companies, but what about the whole government contracting world? Could this be like a whole new way the government does business?
Yeah, it's not just about, changing a few words in a contract.
Right.
This could have a ripple effect.
It could, yeah.
Change everything from competition and innovation to what kinds of companies are even in the game.
Definitely.
So we got to think bigger than just adjusting to a new contract.
Right.
We need to be thinking about how the whole system is changing. What are some of the long-term consequences that really stand out to you?
Well, one of the biggest worries is what happens to innovation.
Right.
Like we said before, fixed price contracts can make companies just focus on keeping costs down,
Right.
and that can make them scared to propose anything new or different.
Yeah, it's like they're encouraged to play it safe. Stick to what they know instead of trying new things and taking risks.
Right.
And that could really slow down progress.
I could.
Especially in areas like technology or research, where breakthroughs come from people who think outside the box.
Exactly. And that worry about less innovation, it ties into another concern.
Okay.
We might see fewer companies that are even qualified to do this work.
Okay.
Smaller businesses, especially those without a lot of resources, might think it's just too risky to even try for fixed price contracts.
So it becomes a game for the big guys.
Kinda, yeah.
Only those with deep pockets can play.
Mm.
And that could squeeze out smaller, more flexible, maybe even more innovative companies.
Yeah.
Less diversity, less competition overall.
And you know what happens when there's less competition?
What?
The government might end up paying more in the long run.
Really?
Yeah, because there's less pressure to keep prices low.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a short-term win that could cause problems down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
So this shift is a real balancing act.
It is.
The government wants a predictable budget and lower costs.
Yeah.
But they also need to make sure there's still room for innovation and a healthy market with lots of competition.
Right. They got to find that balance.
And we can't forget about the possibility of this leading to, mega contractors.
Yeah.
If smaller companies can't compete under this fixed price model,
Right.
we might see more mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
The big companies just getting bigger,
That's right.
which concentrates power in the hands of a few.
Yeah.
And that's not always good for a healthy market.
No, it's not. A healthy market needs variety.
Yeah.
Big companies, small companies, established players, and new innovators. That's what keeps things moving, brings fresh ideas, and makes the system more resilient.
So how do we stop smaller businesses from getting pushed out of this changing environment? The article we've been talking about, it doesn't really offer any solutions for that, does it?
No, not really. It doesn't get into specific policies or anything. But it does say the government needs to really think about the potential consequences of this shift.
Yeah.
Consider policies that could help even the playing field a bit.
So maybe things like reserving some contracts just for small businesses,
Yeah.
or giving bigger companies incentives to partner with smaller ones on projects,
That's a good idea.
creating a system where everyone has a chance.
Exactly. It's not about giving anyone special treatment.
Right.
It's about recognizing that smaller businesses bring a lot to the table.
Right.
Innovation, flexibility, specialized skills,
Yeah.
things that ultimately benefit the government and the public.
And this all connects to another important point,
Okay.
workforce development.
Right.
As the nature of government contracts changes,
Yeah.
so do the skills people need to have.
We got to be thinking ahead, anticipating what skills will be needed in the future, and preparing the workforce for jobs that might not even exist yet.
So investing in education and training that go beyond just filling the jobs we have now. Programs that give people the skills to succeed in a world that's changing all the time.
Right.
Things like data analytics, cybersecurity, AI,
Yeah.
advanced manufacturing.
All essential.
Yeah.
But it's not just about technical skills.
No.
It's about critical thinking, problem solving, and a willingness to keep learning.
We need people who can adapt, innovate, and work together, because the only thing that's certain is that things will keep changing.
Well said.
And that brings us to a final, really important point we've touched on throughout this whole conversation.
Okay.
Ethics.
Ah, yes.
As the government contracting world gets more complex and competitive,
Right.
the pressure to cut corners or compromise ethical standards is likely to increase.
It's easy to see how that could happen
Yeah.
with deadlines, tight budgets, and high stakes.
Someone might be tempted to bend the rules or look the other way just to get ahead.
It's possible.
So it's crucial to create a culture of ethical awareness and accountability throughout the whole system.
Absolutely. We need clear ethical guidelines, good training, protection for whistleblowers, and strong enforcement. It's not enough to just talk about ethics.
Right.
We need to build systems that make ethical behavior the standard, not the exception.
So this is about more than just individual choices.
Right.
It's about building a culture where integrity matters, where it's rewarded, and where it's protected.
Exactly.
And that leads us to a question for our listeners.
Okay.
What role can you play in shaping the future of government contracting? It's easy to think these big issues are out of our hands.
Yeah.
But we can all do our part to shape this changing landscape.
The first step is staying informed.
Right.
Keep up with what's happening in the industry, changes in policies, new technologies.
Mhm.
Read articles like the one we've been discussing, go to events, talk to other professionals.
Be a lifelong learner in this field.
Exactly. And once you're informed, don't be afraid to speak up. Share what you know, voice your concerns, advocate for policies that support innovation, competition, and ethical behavior.
Write to your representatives, participate in industry discussions, make your voice heard.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
Every voice matters.
As we wrap up today, let's remember that there are people at the center of this whole system.
Absolutely.
Government contracting isn't just about money.
Right.
It's about solving problems, making lives better, building a better future.
It's about using our creativity, resources, and determination to make a positive impact.
Building bridges, developing new technologies, protecting our environment, creating opportunities. So as you navigate this changing world of government contracting, remember to keep that bigger picture in mind.
Yeah.
Your actions, even the small ones, can help shape a future where government contracting is a force for good.
That's a great way to put it. It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
Government contracting is always changing, and we're all learning as we go.
Yeah.
The key is to stay informed, stay involved, and stay true to your values.
And never stop asking questions.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
Absolutely.
So keep those curious minds working, fellow knowledge seekers. We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration.
See you then.
Until then, stay curious and keep learning.